I'm literally shaking right now because I just had a man approach me in a parking lot and it went fine. And I'm going to tell you why it went fine and how to address it, because it was in a book I read and this is how you're supposed to address it, but it scared me. I'm literally shaking. So this guy, I am alone with my son, by myself, a woman, and a male approached me in a parking lot. He's, "Excuse me, miss," and I don't know why in the hell he was approaching me or what he was trying to do. And before he was probably 30 feet from me when he said, "Excuse me, ma'am." And I turned around and I literally yelled at him and I said, "Do not approach me." And he immediately started going in the other direction. And I just kept saying it over and over and over. I said, "Do not approach me. Do not approach me." And he, of course, got "What the F?" He started cussing and yelling, what's your problem? And I looked at him and he actually then crossed a couple cars down from my car. And he didn't come anywhere near me. He crossed a couple cars down from my car and was continuing to cuss and say, "What's your problem?" And I said, "You do not approach women in a parking lot." I just kept saying, "Do not approach me. You do not approach women in a parking lot," yelling it. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. Ever. No male should ever approach a woman in a parking lot. And if a male does approach you, you need to turn around and use the strongest voice that you can possibly use with them. Don't be polite. They need to literally screw off. No male should be approaching you in a parking lot.
Have you ever taken a ride in a time machine back to the 1950s? The difference between then and now is like comparing a flip phone to an iPhone. The margin is huge. But here's a question that's been bugging me for a while. Why don't men approach women like they used to back then? You had no choice but to muster up the courage to cold approach a woman or meet her father at the church and hope she wasn't already taken or wasn't secretly a serial killer. Nowadays, you can just swipe left or right in your pajamas and find a date for the night. Talk about taking the easy way out. Back in the day, it took some real effort to win a woman's heart. Women had limited options. They had to choose from the guys in their community or wait for Prince Charming to come riding in on his horse. The male psyche is complex, and men must take risks to approach women. In today's world, social media has made it easier to connect with people, yet it has also made it easier to hide behind a computer screen. Men are often afraid of rejection when they approach women, so they choose to stay hidden. This is a topic worth exploring, as we need to understand the consequences of this trend continuing. Why aren't men approaching women these days? To answer this question, we must look at the male psyche. Men are all about assessing risks and rewards before taking action, just like when they approach marriage. They weigh the risks versus rewards and what they stand to lose if things go south and the woman wants a divorce. It's like playing a game of chess, but with their hearts on the line. Approaching women can be a risky and unrewarding process. Men already fear rejection and humiliation, so for a guy to risk getting turned down, made fun of, or labeled a creep, he must think the outcome is worth it. Unfortunately, in today's society, women often view the average man they don't want as a predator, creep, sexual assaulted, or rapist. This can be a huge confidence killer for men. If the average guy were to approach the average woman respectfully to start a conversation, he'd most likely get humiliated. It's like walking into a minefield blindfolded and finding out that the mines are labeled friend zone and creep. No wonder guys are hesitant to make a move. Have you seen those videos of guys trying to talk to women without being disrespectful or creepy, only for the woman to make a fool out of him? It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. She records the whole thing, spins the narrative that he's a creep, and uploads it to social media for laughs and attention. I mean, talk about a confidence killer. I'm sitting here looking at those videos and asking myself, why would any guy still want to approach a woman these days? It's understandable why some men might be hesitant to approach a woman these days. Women have to be extra careful out in the world because they could be taken by a man against their will at any moment. However, it's also true that women can publicly humiliate men just for talking to them, even if there are a lot of people around. This suggests that modern women don't respect men anymore. If a woman is known for disrespecting average and below average men who approach her, do you think she would do the same thing to Jeff Bezos? Of course not. Jeff Bezos is a billionaire with power, authority, and status that no woman would dare talk down to a more humiliated man who is clearly better than she could ever be. It's like trying to insult a superhero. You just can't do it. At the end of the day, it all boils down to a man's status and perceived value based on how he looks, talks, and approaches a woman. It's like playing a game of who's got more swag. Women will treat different men differently based on how they perceive them. If a man doesn't meet her standards, she'll treat him like trash. But if she perceives another man is better than her, she'll treat him like a king. It's like a messed up version of The Bachelor, only without the rose ceremony. To further understand this, look at the interaction between her and her boss versus the janitor. Right off the bat, we know who wouldn't be disrespected if they were to approach her. It's like trying to talk to a queen when you're just a peasant. You'll get the royal boot in no time. So, what's the verdict? Women will always treat men differently based on their perceived value and status. If a man is seen as lower than her, she won't hesitate to show him disrespect. However, if she perceives him as higher than her, she'll treat him with respect and admiration. Modern women no longer respect men, and it's no surprise that most guys have already figured this out and decided to opt out of talking to them. They've seen how women treat other men who look like them versus the high-value men, and they're deciding to walk away entirely.